Evening, and welcome to the January meeting of the Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus. I'm Steve Oleko, the political director of the organization, and I really want to thank you guys for being indoors on this meeting tonight when you could be outside in the lovely January weather. So thanks for coming. Um, our program is going to be in three phases. How to run for central committee, first of all, what central committee is, how to run for central committee, and what to do when you're on the ballot. We have a great slideshow presentation that we'll get to momentarily, but a little bit of housekeeping before we get started with the slideshow. For those of you that are new to Progressive Caucus Zoom meetings, we do not put a lot of links in the chat because folks then are going back and forth to the chat and they miss stuff from the meeting. So tomorrow, every one of you who is here, or there are some folks who registered for the event but couldn't make it, you'll get an email, and the email will have a couple of different links to it. First of all, join the Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus. We may have some people here tonight who are not Progressive Caucus members and who like what they hear. Membership is free, and so there'll be a link to join. There's also a donate link. We are all volunteer funded, all volunteer staffed, and to stay in business, keep our office open, and pay for the number of emails we send out, we need small contributions from folks like you. There'll also be a link to the video of this meeting, and that's for folks who registered but couldn't attend. But we're going to share it on our social media. And if you have friends who are interested in Central Committee but didn't register, please share it with them. Please share it anywhere and everywhere that you can. We'll also have the Build Back Cuyahoga links, which will go through the process that we're going to describe tonight. And then at the bottom of the email, a link to our February meeting. February 19th is the date. The topic is unionize with an exclamation point. So, Deb, if you could start the slideshow. Oh, one other thing. As far as questions are concerned, let's get through the entire presentation. I don't think it's going to take longer than a half hour, maybe even quicker. And then we'll answer every single question that you might have. And you can either write the question in the chat, or we'll be watching for folks who raise their hand in the audience if you go to the reaction section down at the bottom. Joining me for the slideshow presentation, Richard Pryor. Please raise your hand, Richard, or let us know where you are.
Hey, folks.
Richard is, Richard is not related to the comedian, okay?
Nope.
Although in meetings he is very funny sometimes. But Richard is a member of DSA, and he's going to do, some of the slides as well. Bishop Chewy, Bishop, raise your hand, please, is a member of A Better Cleveland for All, also a Progressive Caucus member, and Bishop's going to do some of the slides too. So when we hand off, so to speak, I'll let you know who's coming. All right, Deb, if you could put the first slide up and we'll get rolling.
There you go, Steve.
Building a winning and accountable Democratic Party. Okay, winning, of course, we really need to win elections, especially this midterm cycle, but accountable, okay? And accountable means that everything is above board. Now, recently, the Democratic Party in Cuyahoga County has been a lot better, but it hasn't always been that way, and it still isn't perfectly accountable. This is actually a continuation of a project that we first began in the 2018 party chair election cycle, when we started to get more and more people to run for central committee. But we fell a little short in the party chair election. In 2022, we actually got Dave Brock, one of our members, elected because we got more and more folks elected to Central Committee with a progressive vision. And, like any other successful campaign, a very good coalition was built. So we are continuing in 2026 for the next 4 years, trying to get more progressive people on Central Committee. And the goal here is there is a committee, a bylaws committee, that is going to make recommendations for bylaws changes. But it is the Central Committee that actually approves any bylaws changes. The Central Committee is the heart of the Democratic Party in Cuyahoga County, because the Central Committee is responsible for getting people to vote at election time. It votes on the party chair, and it votes on rule changes. Central Committee members also elect executive committee members who vote on endorsements. So what we're asking you to do is become a member of the heart of the Democratic Party to build a winning and accountable Democratic Party. Slide 2, please, Deb. The perilous moment, and we don't have to describe to you guys why this is a perilous moment. Power is not what you have, but what they think you have. So what's going to happen is, if we have all of these progressives running for Central Committee and winning seats, we have power within the Democratic Party, okay? And they will think that we have it. All right, I'm going to pass off slide 3 to Richard Pryor.
Thanks, Steve. So as Steve mentioned, the Central Committee is an elected body of Democrats with one representative from every precinct across Cuyahoga County. And it is the grassroots backbone of the CCDP. We elect the chair, currently Dave Brock. We elect city and ward leaders and executive committee members, like Steve just said. We also make changes to bylaws and make endorsements. And with endorsements, one of the key things about that is that not just does an endorsement give you the official support and additional funding and volunteers, it also gives you a space on what is called the sample ballot. So you get your little postcard every year from the Democrats telling you who they think you should vote for. When we can either block an endorsement of a moderate politician or get an endorsement for a progressive, that significantly changes the calculus of the election. Thanks to the organizing that we did in 2022, we were able to block an endorsement in the Cuyahoga County prosecutorial election in 2024, which allowed Matthew On, an unabashed progressive, taking on one of the county's most senior office holders, Mike O'Malley, to knock over 40% of the vote and do phenomenally in communities that you might not even have expected him to do. And that's because we did, it wasn't just us telling the party didn't tell low ID voters just to vote for the person we like. Voters had to actually go out and do their own research. And across the country, central committees are what builds the larger national Democratic Party. Next slide, please.
Just before we get to the next slide, Richard, you mentioned the Central Committee does the endorsements. They do not.
The executive does,
committee.
Right,
but they elect the executive committee.
Okay. We were able to block because we got enough people to make those elections for executive committee. So why run? Because you're seeing the enshittification of everything and the way that 2025 went, not just for our country, but also for our neighbors and our neighborhoods here in Cleveland and Cuyahoga County. You want us to be part of a party that's going to fight back against right-wing authoritarianism. You want to help fight against the potential of Governor Vivek Ramaswamy. We want to beat Republicans at the ballot box, and with our slate in particular, we want to eliminate the practices that have stopped real, proud, brave progressive voices like Matthew Ons and many others from getting further by stopping primary endorsements, stopping elected leaders serving as their ward or city leaders, and stopping the influence of big money in Democratic primaries.
Back to Steve.
Back to Steve.
Okay, here are the steps to run for Central Committee. And if you're looking at this as a first-time candidate and saying, oh, that looks really, really complicated, it is and it isn't. But I want to stress something. My name and my phone number is at the bottom of all of our emails. If you're going through this process and you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to give me a call, or you can either email us, let us know. That's far more important than like doing something wrong, getting the signatures and taking them down to the Board of Elections and them rejecting it. So let's go through this, and then we will in time answer any questions you have. Print the petition, Form 2L, and there's a link to it. Just print it. Declaration of candidacy form from the Secretary of State's website, or go down to the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections to pick up a petition and get help completing the top portion. Most people find it's a little bit easier to print the petition. Okay. 2, fill out the declaration of candidacy form with the name you use to vote, the exact name. Okay. I'm Steve Holeko, but the County Board of Elections has my name as Stephen E. Holeko. So that's what I used when I filled out my declaration of candidacy. And if you're not sure, go to step 3, fill in your precinct, ward, and city accordingly. You can find your precinct by filling in your name and birthday here. Now, when you click that link, you'll go to the County Board of Elections, and the exact name that you are registered to vote in will pop up. Get the voter list for your precinct here, city districts. Number 5 is very important. You need 5 valid signatures to get on the ballot. Now, it says get 5 to 15 signatures from Democrats in your precinct. The reason you want to get more, and up to 15 is really good, is because sometimes the voter lists are inaccurate, and sometimes people aren't really Democrats, and they might sign your petition. That signature becomes invalid then. And sometimes, and you got to watch when folks are filling this out, where it says signature, people print their name. Okay. Sometimes they put their address in the wrong part. The County Board of Elections will throw those signatures out too. Now, if you're getting signatures and you see a mistake, what you can do is put a line through the mistake and then have the person fill in the next line. One other thing, the signatures on your petition, the date that they sign, the dates have to be in order. Okay, I know that might seem like a silly thing, but if they're not in order, they will reject the entire petition. Very, very important. Republicans and no party voters should not sign your petition because those signatures will be invalid. The goal is to get a minimum of 10, but if you can get 15, you are safer when you turn that petition in. Now, make sure you or the person who obtained your signatures completes and signs the circulator statement. You do not want to complete the circulator statement until after you're done getting signatures, because there's a column in there or a line in there in which you have to report how many signatures you get. So you can't really put that in until after you get the signatures. You can fill everything else out, like your name, and sign it. In fact, you probably should. but don't put the number in until after you're done. Make a copy of the petition so you have it in case you turned it in, there's something wrong, you don't think there's something wrong, you have another copy. The last day to turn petitions in is February 4th of this year. It is a good idea, though, to maybe turn it in the last week in January, because if your petition is invalid, you then have time to go get more signatures. Okay, next slide, please, Deb. This is what the petition looks like, okay? And it's pretty clearly spelled out. But one of the things, if you'll look at, you need to know if your community is a city, a township, or a village, okay? Because you have to fill in the right, precinct, whatever it is, and then the city or the village. And then you can see, the columns, the signature, and, and what they are asking for. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Bishop Chewy for slide 7.
This part is pretty simple. I want to walk you through how you can get a list of the voters that are in your area. And you can see at the top part, this is the county's website. You're going to go right over here to the slide where it says Maps and Data. Click on Maps and Data, and then it's going to take you to the next page. Next slide, please. And then you're going to go, because all the wards are chopped up into smaller districts. You're going to go to city districts, and you're going to click on that, and it's going to take you to the different districts within your ward. Next slide. And then, for example, we have Cleveland Ward 1 here. If you're running in Cleveland Ward 1, you can click on that, and it's going to give you a spreadsheet of all the registered voters in Cleveland Ward 1. You're going to go through that, and you're going to look for the Democrats that are within your precinct, and those are the folks that you're going to go to and get their signatures. Next slide.
Is it yours or goes back to Steve?
I believe that's Steve.
If you have an opponent, you will need to run a small campaign to support your election. Now, to find out if you have an opponent or not, after the filing deadline, check back a couple days later to the County Board of Elections site, the 2026 candidates list, scroll down to your name and your precinct and see if there's another name there. If there's another name there, that is your primary opponent. Starting in March and April, talk with neighbors, tell them you are running for Central Committee, and ask them for support. And you want to use the same voter list that you used to get the signatures. Also, you might want to wait until the snow melts and it gets a little warmer, because people tend not to answer their doors when it's real cold. Like the first spring day is good, okay? When people are out and it's like, oh, the weather's nice, this is cool. Knock on doors and circulate a flyer about your candidacy. We're going to go into that in more detail at a meeting we've scheduled for March 19th. We'll get you information for that. But we're going to talk about how to run this campaign. One thing about the flyer that you get, make sure it has a union bug on it. A lot of Democrats, if they get literature from a campaign, if they're strong union people, they will immediately reject your campaign if you don't have a union bug on your materials. All right, next slide, I believe, is questions. So we will try to
Steve.
answer all of these questions. Yes, Deb.
Steve, there's a QR code to register for the March 19th meeting on the
Oh, I
slide.
did not see that. Right. And we'll put the registration link in the email tomorrow. We'll also send the slideshow to you.
We have some questions in the chat.
All right, let's get started.
Somebody said that petition is different than what I got from the BOE. There's no county column. The sample that we have.
As a lot of the forms are going to be different. The one that you get from the state is going to be different from the county. But as long as all of the information on your form is accurate and there are no mistakes, they're supposed to accept it.
Okay, I think we answered this one about the no party, no. Can someone who's listed as no party with the BOE run as a central committee member? Oh, Bishop already answered it. Okay. All right, Bishop, you answered a lot of these.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can
Bishop, you're breaking up.
but I answered the question. I'm sorry. Hear me now?
Yeah, breaking up. How long is the term? It's 4 years.
Time commitment. That's a good question.
Yeah, time commitment. Steve, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, in 2026, there's a bigger time commitment than in most years. And the reason is after the elections are certified in late May, in June, the entire county's new central committee will elect the party chair. Okay. And then in the summertime, July or August, it takes a while for all of these meetings to occur. Central committee will meet to vote on two things: a city or ward leader. The city leader is suburban, ward leader is in the city of Cleveland. And then Central Committee will also elect executive committee members. So that's a very important task of the Central Committee in 2026. And those meetings will be in your community. Okay. And what happens is a representative from the party will come to the meeting. You'll have the election for city leader or ward leader, and then you'll elect executive committee members. But after that, for the most part, there's not a lot of meetings as far as a time commitment is concerned. The bylaws committee, as I mentioned, is working to revise the bylaws, and that's going to carry over into the next party chair's tenure, assuming Dave wins re-election. I don't know what will happen if he doesn't. But Central Committee ultimately approves any bylaws changes that the bylaws committee recommends. So that may be a meeting that occurs this year. It might be a meeting that occurs more than once, okay, as these bylaws are revised. I'm on the committee. Trust me, it's like pulling teeth, and it's a very tedious process. And it's also like taking rule changes to Central Committee. We don't want to go to Central Committee with a lot of different things. We'd rather have one concrete change. Like those of you that were on the Central Committee this past cycle, we met and we voted to make the party chair position a paid position. Okay. But there's other things that the bylaws committee is discussing. So that's another additional meeting. There may not be any other Central Committee meetings other than the ones I described. The one thing that does occur in county council, if there is a Democratic member of county council that resigns midterm, then the Central Committee members of that district will meet to elect a successor for the remainder of the term. That could happen. Now, that doesn't happen for state level offices. If a state representative or a state senator resigned midterm, then the Ohio Democratic Party would pick the successor. But county council, that is an instance where that would happen. Probably the most important task of a central committee member, though, and this isn't a meeting, is getting materials out and talking to voters in your precinct at election time. Okay. And that occurs every election cycle. There's also the task of passing sample ballots out on polling day, things like that. But for every one of these central committee meetings, there's never 100% attendance. Like, it is impossible for the county party to schedule a meeting of, say, 700 or 800 central committee members on a date that everybody can make it. So, I mean, there's no penalty if you have to miss a meeting, like, say you have an out-of-town wedding to go to on the day of the party chair election. Well, you got to do family stuff. So that's about it, the time commitment. On a day-to-day basis, you're not doing this like all the time. It's actually pretty light, but very important.
Steve, one other thing that I think we need to add is voter turnout and voter engagement in your precinct. That's one of the things that I know that the party has really been trying to encourage folks to do. So around the elections, there may take a little bit more time because you'll be trying to engage with the voters to increase voter turnout.
Yeah, and when you pass out the literature at election time, if you can talk to the person as well, that's a bonus. They usually give you these plastic bags to put on the door handle, but a knock on the door, introduce yourself. I'm your precinct committee. But by the way, precinct committee member and central committee member is the same thing. I'm your precinct committee member. Please vote. This election cycle is important. Here are the Democratic Party candidates, and hand them the literature.
So we have Steve, Bishop, Richard, and Deb. Can each of you address how likely it is Central Committee gets to vote to abolish the Executive Committee, and do you think that would be a good thing?
That would have to come from the Bylaws Committee. And to tell you the truth, I do not think that is something that the other members of the committee would consider. That's not a bad idea. It's like, why go through this extra step of elect a central committee member and then they elect executive committee? Why can't the elected central committee member also just become an executive committee member? But currently, right now, the bylaws are not structured like that. And I should add, too, not every precinct is going to have a central committee candidate. I mean, that would be great if it occurred, but that's not likely. There's like 900 something precincts, and some of these precincts have very few Democrats in them. And so it's more difficult if there's only a few Democrats to find somebody, willing to do this. But the city or ward leader can, throughout the 4-year process, make recommendations for appointment to central committee. And the same thing is true for executive committee. Each community or ward is allotted a certain number of executive committee members. And it's based on the number of Democrats in your community that vote. But each precinct or each city or each ward may not fill their allotted number of executive committee positions by electing people. And so then there's also the opportunity for the city or ward leader to make executive committee appointments, which ultimately have to be approved by the party chair. But the party chair will not reject anybody that, central or ward leader appoint, unless the one thing they do check is your voting record. Obviously, you don't want to appoint somebody who's not really a Democrat to one of these positions.
So we have, Chris Martin has his hand up. You have to unmute yourself, Chris.
Good. Can you hear me?
Yep,
Yes.
you're good.
Good. Steve, I believe you are incorrect. I asked Deb for confirmation of this, that any central committee member can get a bylaw change, force a vote on a bylaw change by circulating a petition and gathering sufficient number of signatures. So as any central committee member could force a vote on the abolishment of the executive committee if that were the goal of that central committee member. And if that were the goal of this Rep Your Block effort, it could be. It does not have to go through the bylaws committee. It can be any member circulating a petition.
Right, but any member can't force the vote. What has to happen, and thank you, Chris, for mentioning that. What has to happen is, I believe it's 70 signatures of other central committee members to force that vote. Well, again, thank you, Chris. That is another avenue, but we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. Right now, we're just trying to get people in these spots. And I should add that there
For
are
what
people,
purpose? If the purpose of like if the purpose of getting people into these spots is to make the Democratic Party more small d democratic, how can you do that other than abolish the executive committee? And if that is not an explicit goal of this effort, it will never happen.
I would be fine with that, Chris, but what we have to do is we have to get progressives in these spots who are willing to sign that petition to force that vote.
And so I think that should be presented to all of the candidates running under the Rep Your Block banner as something expected of them. If you want support from Rep Your Block, then you should be agreeing to sign a petition to force a vote on the abolishment of the executive committee.
Well, we'll talk about that. Any other questions?
No other questions.
Like I said, if you're going through this process, please contact us if you have any questions as you're going through it. And remember the date, March 19th. You can register for that meeting as soon as you get the email tomorrow. And also remember our February meeting, Unionize, on the 19th of February. Anything else, guys? Thanks for coming. Good night.